Bill Henshaw here, your friendly local constitutional coop out here in California. And this video is going to be on HOAs, homeowners associations. And a lot of you instinctively know, like we do in other areas of government, with traffic court, evictions, mortgage crap, and all that. It's basically the same issues here. But the big deal about this one, with an HOA, is they can't force you to join people. You have an unlimited power to contract secured by Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution for the United States. And no state government can do what they're doing with these HOAs and sign them up as LLCs and this, that, and the other and force you to join. Hell with that. Doesn't work. And not only that, they never make anything remotely related to a full disclosure of all the terms and conditions of the agreement, many of which probably aren't even inviting, and you know how they come along and do what they want to do with what looks like your property. And that's the real problem. Because when you buy property, in this day and age, and for quite a while since at least HJR 192, you do that, and the Constitution overtly doesn't mandate it, but if you use paper money defined by the president acting as commander in chief of the armed forces, then all you have is an equitable interest in your property. You don't own it. That's how they get away with this crap, because you have no rights that the de facto national socialist government is bound to respect. That has to stop. And this is a great way to get the ball rolling, and especially with the Supreme Court in their fourth term now of ruling against these administrative agencies, and unanimously in the opinion last year, axing the FTC. And you read that and don't know what you're reading, you think that's straight out of a homeowners association case. The same damn issues. And yet they continue to get away with it because all these state bar association attorneys and backroad bastards are going to allow them to do it because of all the money they get paid behind the scenes, among other things. And they're all in it together. It has to stop. And we can do it with the Supreme Court now doing what they're doing and sounding more and more exactly like me. We have a lot of leverage. And not only that, but with these HOAs and really all the official actors embracing the 14th Amendment, to achieve their objectives, and we can prove that amendment does not exist. But they've openly embraced it. So unlike Trump, they're not, they are subject to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Even though we can prove that doesn't exist and never did, it won't help these perps because they bought into it. That's not our problem. They want to see their law schools, wherever they went to, long gone Polytechnic, Inc. They can do it. But they should know better in the United States. It's not how government operates pursuant to that original intent of those racist framers. And that's where all the problems come in. We have a lot of structural jurisdictional errors and potentially big settlements with these badges because the leverage that you have out there, it isn't just your case. We get one case, especially if it reaches the U.S. Supreme Court, decided on the record. That puts HOAs out of business from Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon, and good riddance. Get back to where you have property rights. You can basically do what you want with your property. And there are some things that could be worked out among neighbors that, kind of unofficially, and you get together and talk and say, well, we like to keep the neighborhood up this way and that way. But if you want to make basic changes in your property, I don't see any reason that you should not be able to do it. Unlimited power to contract. So it's basically that simple. And the documents you get from me, oh, by the way, send me an email, ugwenscourt@gmail.com. And we can work together and take these bastards out, maybe in a quote unquote state trial court, which you're going to learn don't exist. There are no judicial courts. And yet you have the right to one from day one. A convenient fact that they omit to tell you when you sign the HOA agreement. And you haven't signed it, by the way. Even if you did, you didn't. Because with that failure to make a full disclosure, among other things, they can't hold you to the terms of the agreement, such as it is. And also, everything nowadays is in commerce, especially those undefined dollars I mentioned earlier. And if that's the case, the trial court, even if it existed as a judicial court, would not have subject matter jurisdiction over Federal Reserve notes that, as I mentioned before, are defined by the president acting as commander in chief of the armed forces. And the big deal here about that is all this paper money is subject to the Commerce Clause powers of Congress, and the Supreme Court has ruled, and the justices damn well know this now, that the Commerce Clause powers of Congress are closely associated with the Admiralty jurisdiction, otherwise known to the racist framers as a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws. So we get in there given them these positions, and maybe even before we get into court, that may resolve the problem there and then, because, like I say, one decision on record, they're gone. And we're going to take their non-existent LLC, limited liability corporation, that's gone. Is what you're going to learn. And send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com, because all these LLCs are registered, if at all, in a quote-unquote state capital and with the Secretary of State, but the Secretary of the State is representing the territory of Georgia, Iowa, Alabama, you name it. You are domiciled in a state judicial district. Their service of process, even if they try to make correct service of process, which they can't do, by the way, and you'll find out more about that. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com, as you see all your name in capital letters and a CA or an AZ or what have you, followed by a zip code. That doesn't work in a common law court. You're going to love all of it. They haven't made effective service, and the Supreme Court has forthrightly ruled against it, and the justices know this vintage case too, called Windsor v. McVeigh, to name one. And then they have the Penoria rule, Penoria v. Neff 95 U.S. 714, about service of process. Now, they can't even force you into their administrative tribunals, and that's a red-hot issue on the Supreme Court bench right now. They haven't to date, by the way, reached into what you might consider a state court and state agencies, but what they've ruled on the federal level is more than sufficient to take care of business, and especially since what they've been saying about this with all the SEC cases. We have, actually the FTC, Federal Trade, but the same thing, and with Chia versus SEC, Lou versus SEC, Sarkozy versus SEC. And the big deal about all these executive agencies is that the ALJs, who admit they never rule against the SEC or whatever agency it is, are not subject to removal by the president except for good cause. That's not how it worked. It's never been. You're going to learn a lot of interesting things about that, going all the way back to our greatest president, Andrew Johnson. And it doesn't work. And the court has ruled that, if the president is limited like that, then he can't enforce his sworn duty to see the laws are faithfully executed. Just like the governor has in whatever state that they think you're in. And the governor of the territory, by the way, it's even worse, because those bastards have to be appointed by Congress pursuant to Article 4, Section 3. And you start coming in there with issues like that, and not that goddamn due process of law. The hell with that. We have no clue what that means. Those are hardly the 4 magic words, if there are some, and there are, would be Republican form of government, consent of the governed, full faith and credit. And you'll learn all of those studying my modestly priced constitutional defense packets. Send me an email, youwinnincourt@gmail.com. And the good news is these things work across the board. And they're treated, by the way, you notice my papers that you're going to get, especially the trial court packet, look like it's oriented toward criminal prosecutions, and that's true. But when you realize these HOAs and everybody else involved invoking federal regional martial law rule of what we can prove is the non-existent 14th War Amendment, we have all the rights we would have in a criminal setting, and maybe then some. And these bastards have the burden of proof as plaintiffs on jurisdiction and venue, and there's no way they can do it. That's how good the framers designed all of this. It wasn't perfect. No one's saying that, but the best government ever invented, and we want it back. And the HOA has offered some really great opportunities on exactly how to do that. And we're going to have the justices in the U.S. Supreme Court, so they're going to have our backs. So what that means is, bottom line, people, is we're rolling the loaded dice. Not the HOA, not the CPS, not the traffic court. Us. We're supposed to be. We own the place. Sovereign body politic of the nation and republic, the last thing they want you to hear. And I didn't hear a thing about that 60 years ago in high school, right outside of Washington, D.C. Nothing. I have sense, obviously, but boy, if I had learned that in 10th grade U.S. history, my life would have been different. But better late than never. So I'm out there to help you. And in many ways, by the way, because we're going to get these bastards to pay up big time, because they're going to pay to keep you silent and also not to file criminal charges of treason. I think we're very close to being able to do that. So it's all good news, and it all should be if we get our federated Republican form of government of defined and limited powers back in place, while at the same time getting rid of our quote unquote democracy, aka 3 wolves and 2 sheep voting on what's for dinner, aka to Madison and Jefferson as an elective despotism. Send me an email, uwinnincourt@gmail.com. Remember to subscribe, tell your friends, get the word out. The quicker we start taking action against these bastards, the quicker we get them off our back. Thank you.